Oh, just ignore the email I just sent you then.
What email was that?
For some reason, when I clicked on it at 12:29, it popped up like it's scheduled at 12:30, but I guess it has to be 12:30 or after.
Oh, it's because I didn't log in early because I was working on setting up grade books for you guys.
Okay, all right.
Now, oftentimes when I try to get into Zoom, I just use the email link that is like sent out like as a reminder every time. But I always like go to it and then it says, you know, meeting is scheduled for 3:23 at 12:30, and I have to like wait, and then sometimes I'll just like randomly pop in.
Yeah, it's waiting for me to get there since I'm the organizer.
So I should just wait until it pops. Okay.
Yeah, so Kennedy, did you get an email for the Dropbox folder that I set up for you?
Yeah.
We'll look in that and see if there's an Excel file.
Thank you.
A what file?
An Excel file.
I did see an Excel file. I had to like download it, Excel, to my iPad. So I don't know if it will. But I do see it.
Okay. Let's see. Alexis is having difficulty getting in.
I'm here. I got in.
Okay, awesome. So I'm working on, I tried entering grades since I have your exam 2 grade done. It's in you can access that through Moodle. Unfortunately, Moodle sucks in a lot of ways. And one of the ways in which it sucks is it won't allow me to just write in pass-fail grades. So I have on my computer a spreadsheet where I'm keeping your entire grade history for the class. And so what I'm doing is I'm setting up individual Excel files that link back to that grade book so that hopefully it will, as I update grades, the file in your Dropbox that I sent you will also update those grades. The only one that I've worked this out for so far is Kennedy's. Kennedy seems to work fine. I tried it for Claire and I tried it for Jackson and it didn't. So I'm trying to work out the kinks there to kind of see why it's not working.
Yeah, I can see mine.
Is that what I got? A document. It just has like some weird symbols in the exam portions.
Mine works.
Yeah, yours isn't set up yet, Alexis. So just give me a little more time to get the kinks worked out.
On mine, I have a 0 for the literature discussion, but Logan and I did that.
Okay, it doesn't have, I haven't entered those grades in yet. Is that right?
I mean, that's fine. I just thought I'd let you know.
No, that's fine.
Discussion.
Okay, while you're looking at that, did the grade just change? No, never mind. No, don't do that. That's that one. Don't save. Let me do this. So Kennedy, did the letter grade just change now?
For which?
The literature discussion?
No, but maybe.
Close that file and open it back up.
No.
No. Okay. All right. Let me go and see what is wrong. So evidently it's not working for Kennedy's either. So I will have to.
What do you mean by not working? I'm confused about like what you're talking about.
Okay. I would rather. Oh yeah, Kennedy. All right. Give me just a sec. So So Kennedy, mine is showing the change. So did you close the file and open the file back up?
Yeah, now I'm trying to see if it looks different, like in Excel.
There should be a P in the literature discussion section now.
Yeah, I see that now that I opened it in Excel. So.
Yes. Okay, so I'm trying to make your grades accessible to you because when I put a P in Moodle, it records that grade as a 0. And you're not getting a 0 for having passed the Parker and Simmons literature summary. You're not getting a 0 for passing the Bean report. And so what I've done is I've created for each of you a Excel file that only has your grades in it. It is linked back to my Excel file where I've been keeping your grades all the time. And in theory, when I update my Excel file with new grades for you, it will automatically update your file that is accessible to you on Dropbox. That prevents me from having to enter all your grades twice and probably screwing it up. So it seems to work for Kennedy's. Now the thing of it is if you're in there while I make a change, it's not going to record the change. You have to, check it when I haven't messed with it, when I don't have it open on my computer. So in theory, that should keep you guys up to date on your grades as I get things graded, and it will be done in such a way that it makes it easy for me to submit grades at the end of the semester because my grade book is arranged the way the grades form is on my Joule, and you can stay abreast of where you are. There's a column there for the exam average. There's also a column there for your grade as it currently stands on the basis of everything there. And then there's a column for your final grade. So as I put new grades in, I will update, kind of like your grade as it stands at this moment. And then you'll always have a view of kind of how things are going. But I did that successfully for Kennedy's spreadsheet, but when I tried it for Claire and I tried it for Jackson, it's not working. And I think I know what I did wrong, and I think it's going to be a relatively easy fix, but I have to work on it. That's what I'm going to do after I get off the Zoom meeting with you guys. Does that make sense? Alexis, that's what I mean by not working.
Yes, that does make sense.
Okay, all right. So once I get the kinks worked out, it should be nice. I just have to get the kinks worked out. All right. Did you guys get my email about passive voice?
Yep.
Logan, just the man I wanted to talk to.
I figured it was directed at me.
No, it's not directed at you. It's directed at everybody. But can all of you kind of see how you can write in active voice and not have it be a redundant mess of a paragraph?
Yeah. I think I got it figured out for this literature summary.
Okay, good. So one of the things I noticed while I was writing that is I got it all written out, and it didn't take me very long to write it, but I got it all written out, and then I went back and reread it, and I actually had incorporated passive voice into it, so then I had to change a sentence to get passive voice out and get the active voice back in there. Did you also notice how in the process of using active voice, I was able to both include what they did and what they found in the same sentence in many cases?
Now that you mention it, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, isn't that bitchin'? Because I was able to write the methods and the results section in a much shorter, more concise form by forcing myself as a writing exercise to write in active voice. And I think it doesn't read terribly poorly, although Logan might disagree. So I felt that I was criticizing you for writing, not you, Logan, but just anybody, criticizing you all for writing a particular way without going to the trouble of providing you an example of how you can write differently. So there's that thing. And hopefully now everybody in the class gets it better. Questions about that? All right, now I have a crap load of grading to do over Easter since you guys have submitted your your assignments, and I will hopefully get to that over Easter, because I'm not going field collecting because Galveston Island has closed the causeway getting from the mainland to Galveston, and Galveston is where I was going to be doing field work this weekend. So I will be instead at home reading your literature summaries and your hauling lab reports. Yay.
You said exam 2 grades are not in yet, correct? Or should they be?
They're in Moodle. They're not in your in your Excel files.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Yep. Yeah, I loaded all the letter grades in for passing and failing the different writing assignments and also the exam grades. But unfortunately, it recorded all of my letters as zeros, and it seems unwilling to let me just put in letter grades, which is why I'm going with another method.
Gotcha.
Yep. So for the time being, for knowing where you stand numerically, check Moodle. All right. Because I'm trying to, oh, it's not going to let me minimize. Let me make sure I don't have any confidential information up on my computer, like everybody's grades, in a spreadsheet, because that is definitely a FERPA violation. We talked about sexual role reversal, talked about how you think about, I think we ended on how you think about sexual selection, didn't we? Slide 28. Is that correct?
We were on the slide, I think we were on the slide that says, why not go for the best male to begin with? I don't know what slide number that is.
Oh, okay, we had gone, oh yeah, because there's that little marsupial rodent-like thing. Yeah, so we had talked about this. All right, let's go. All right, let's go there. So why not go for the best male to begin with? We've talked about the reasons for this. Oh, come on. There might be high competition for males, so having a poor social mate and rely on extra pair matings for increasing genetic quality of offspring might be one of the reasons. If the pickings are slim, you can't go for the best male, so you take some substandard male and then try and attract, try and mate with a higher quality male on the side. And my computer seems to be messing with me. So these extra pair matings that individuals, a lot of this has to do with actually what birds do. So a bird male will set up a territory, attract females to his territory, but then on the periphery of the territory, you see females venturing out and mating with males in adjacent territories. And so this is what we mean by extra pair matings. You're in what looks to an ornithologist like a permanent pair bond, or at least a seasonal pair bond. So this gets us to the point, a point that I probably should make at this point. The definition of monogamy. When you guys think of monogamy, what do you normally think of?
Commitment to one partner.
Yeah, so this is one male mates with one female, and that's it. What happens in birds a lot of times is what is known as serial monogamy. And this is a situation where it's one male and one female, but only during this reproductive season. So they will be monogamous for this reproductive season, and then next season they may be monogamous with another partner, but they will be monogamous with that partner for that season. And so this is what is known as serial monogamy, when you're monogamous for a particular time period, but then the next time you go to reproduce, you may not be monogamous with that same individual. You will be monogamous with another individual. So even though it looks like monogamy or serial monogamy to an ornithologist, what you see is females going off to the periphery of the male's territory that they're residing in, who's presumably providing food and shelter and everything else, and mating with individuals not in that particular pair bond. So we talked about this some last time. Oftentimes, if the male figures this out, he will basically withhold the resources that he is providing if he has been cuckolded. Cuckolding is the technical term for when a female cheats on a male, or it can also be used for when a male cheats on a female, either way. Oh, what am I meaning by this? So you have situations where the genes that you're selecting a mate for will be expressed differently in males and females. And so mating with one individual might be good for producing high quality sons, while mating with another individual might produce higher quality daughters. And so you have these sexually antagonistic genes, which actually might promote extra pair matings, because you mate with one male because it benefits one gender of one sex of your offspring. You mate with another male because it benefits the other sex of your offspring. And so you get this balance. So in red deer, which are these deer that occur in Northern Europe, especially in England is where they've been studied a lot, it turns out that high fitness male red deer produce relatively low fitness daughters. And so by mating with more than one male, you can actually get, you mate with a high fitness male because that then accrues high fitness to your male offspring, but you might also go and have extra pair matings with a lower fitness male, if that then will give your daughters higher fitness. So extra pair matings are pretty common. You'll find it, like I said, in birds that we normally consider monogamous, something upwards of like 60% of females will actually have extra pair matings. And so monogamy in the way that humans think about it is not terribly common out in the real world. So this leads to sexual conflict. So when you think about investment in offspring, you can go back to the figure that was at the beginning of all of this, the gigantic female egg and the teensy-weensy male sperm. And that, at the very beginning of reproduction, sets up this difference in investment. The difference in investment means that females generally invest more in reproduction than males do, which means that what increases female fitness is not necessarily what increases male fitness. And this ultimately sets up a conflict between males and females. And you can think of this as conflict in humans if you want to, but this conflict is also found throughout the animal world. So generally females are going to, because they've already invested heavily in reproduction, they're going to want the male to invest equally in reproduction, and the male is going to not want to invest in that reproductive effort because his fitness is actually increased by not investing more energy in that current reproductive effort, but by investing energy in finding more reproductive efforts to spend his time on. And so this basically is how the sexual conflict gets set up. And so when we think about sexual conflict, male traits that are the result of this is when males force females to copulate with them. Intromittent organs, the copulatory organs, which enhance mating success of the males. So we talked about, or maybe we didn't talk about this yet, talked about things like damselflies and dragonflies, where the males have these claspers that essentially allow them to dig previous male sperm out of the female. And as a result of that, they get to replace their own sperm with the sperm of the male that the female has previously mated with. We did talk about this in terms of dragonflies and damselflies that do mate guarding, where after the male has mated with the male grabs the female around the neck and they fly around in tandem, a tandem flight, and the male holds onto the female while the female goes and deposits eggs everywhere. So male guarding, frequent copulation, strategic allocation of sperm, these once again are all things that are designed to increase male fitness that don't necessarily benefit female fitness at all. The removal and displacement of rival male sperm. Copulatory plugs we mentioned with katydids, where there's a spermatophore, which is a glob of usually sugar and protein with a little packet of sperm placed on top of it. When the male gives that to the female places that in her copulatory organ, and while she's eating the nutritive part of it, the sperm are being transferred. But one of the things that also can happen is that a portion of that spermatophore isn't accessible to the female and serves as a mating plug. It basically plugs up her reproductive system such that no other male sperm can get in there. There are some species of spiders. On spiders, if you guys went and looked at the Stratton paper, and I'll just go and get that real quick here. So in Stratton 2005, what's that? Somebody say something? So on a spider, can you guys see the spiders?
Yes.
Okay. So on the spiders, they have 4 legs on each side of the body, so 8 legs total. And then they have this thing in the front that is called a pedipalp. And in the male, the pedipalp is the copulatory structure. What they do is they weave a web typically, and then their genital opening is on their abdomen, on the underside of their abdomen. They will then take this webbing that they create, they will deposit sperm on that webbing, and then they turn around and they dab their pedipalps into the little ball of sperm that they've put on there, and it sucks the sperm up into the pedipalps. And the pedipalps have all these tubes and things inside of them where sperm is stored. This is commonly referred to as loading the pedipalps with sperm. And these structures are highly species specific in many cases. So this is the outer structure of this. And when you pump hemolymph into these organs, all of these little folds and everything fold out into an elaborate intermittent organ, copulatory organ. And these organs oftentimes fit in lock and key fashion inside the female copulatory openings, which are here for a variety of different species. And so what happens is the male goes to court the female. If the female is receptive, the female will basically put her body down. The male climbs on top of this, and on top of her, they're facing one another. So his abdomen is basically on top of her head, and his cephalothorax is on top of her abdomen. And then she will turn her abdomen so that he can get access to her genital structures on the underside of the abdomen. And he inserts one pedipalp at a time into the female and then transfers sperm that way. Now, in most species, the spider walks away from the situation and everything's fine. But in some cases, what the male will do in some species is when he's finished copulating with her, he will take one of his pedipalps, insert it in there as if he is copulating with her and transferring sperm. And while he's in there, he turns his pedipalp and breaks it off in her genital structure here. And so now she's wandering around with a male's genital structure stuck in her epigynum. This is called an epigynum. And as a result of that, it makes it impossible for any future male to copulate with that female. And so when your book refers to sperm plugs, that is what they are referring to. And it's clever. And in those species that do that, it's really easy to see which males have copulated and which males haven't, because the males that haven't copulated have both their pedipalps, and the males that have are missing one. So copulatory plugs. Sometimes when you give a female a spermatophore, there are hormones in the spermatophore that act as anti-aphrodisiacs that discourage matings with other males, and all sorts of pheromonal communication that might manipulate behavior in the female. So males have a set of traits that have evolved to basically increase male fitness, and these traits are not necessarily going to benefit female fitness at all. Female traits to resist males are to basically resist enforced copulation. Intromittent organs that enhance mating success. Females may have evolved elaborate reproductive tracts that pose obstacles for sperm to reach the eggs. To counter male guarding and frequent copulation, females will seek extra pair copulations. Removal or displacing sperm. Sometimes females can just eject the sperm that they've received from the male. Even if you give a female a copulatory plug, she can actually internally exercise sperm choice. Do you guys know of an example of this out in nature? It's fairly well known.
The ducks. Female duck reproductive organs. The reproductive tract has all these blind alleys, these blind pouches that sperm go into after the female has reproduced with the male, and she has control over those blind alleys, and she knows which sperm have gone into which of those blind alleys. So when she then goes to fertilize eggs, she can basically choose which male sperm actually go into fertilizing her eggs. This is sometimes referred to as cryptic male selection, cryptic female choice rather, because it doesn't look like female choice on the outside. It looks like she's just mating with whatever males want to mate with her, but she exercises female choice after she's received a bunch of sperm from a number of males. And so quite fascinating ways in which females have worked around the devices of males.
How do they track sperm?
Pardon?
How do they track the sperm that's inside of them?
I don't know, except that I think a lot of organisms are probably more aware of their internal state than perhaps humans are. But I'm not sure what the neurological basis of it is, but it's been shown by paternity tests that they do have quite a lot of control over which sperm go into fertilizing which eggs. And I'm not sure, like I said, neurologically how they accomplish that, but they seem to accomplish it. So here we have a situation in water striders. Water striders, there is variation in the elaboration of the male intromittent organ, and these things are correlated with the structure of the female body shape as well. And so as there's a correlation between male morphology and female morphology.
What are those little structures?
So this is here you see a male and a female in copulation. The female is underneath the male. They are mating in this little dimple that is on the water. And so this is the back end of the male's abdomen. And that's where on most insects where the male copulatory structure is found. And this is all different copulatory structures within one species. I'm sorry, among a variety of species, of different
water bug. And when you look at all of these different species and you look at the shape of the body versus the shape of the female body versus the shape of the male body, in the case of this copulatory structure, you actually find that these things are tightly correlated. The same thing is true of spiders. There is a guy, let me see if I can remember his name, who studies spiders in Panama, who pioneered this kind of study in spiders. West Eberhard is his wife's name. Why can I not remember his name? His last name is Eberhard. But he studied the copulatory structure of the female and the copulatory structure of the male as it copulates with females, and once again found that there was this lock and key sort of way of going about fitting together. And in some of these cases, what these structures are used for is not only just to fit the copulatory structure of the female, but also to use some of these structures to remove sperm. And so, once again, this would be an example of sexual conflict.
How does that,
at the mating phase?
Yeah, like I'm confused about how this example applies to like the things that we were just looking at in that chart. Like,
so in this case, it would be intromittent organs that enhance male mating success and elaborate reproductive tracts that pose obstacle courses for male sperm. That can be internally in terms of the evaginations of the reproductive tract like you see in ducks, but it could also have to do with the fitting together of copulatory organs themselves. So as males evolve copulatory organs that help them succeed, females can actually also evolve reproductive organs, copulatory organs that make it more difficult. And if that's the case, then these two sexes are involved in an arms race. And as a result of that, you will get more and more elaborate male copulatory structures and more elaborate female copulatory structures. Does that make sense?
but wouldn't the females, like to me that looks like the males are evolving more elaborate structures, and in response the females are doing the same so that they can mate with the more elaborate males, not in like a conflict way.
Well, you can have this in a conflict sort of way, as the males evolve elaborate shapes, the females evolve ever more elaborate shapes to thwart them, which then places selection back on males. So it's basically a reproductive arms race in the same way that female choice would drive the tail length of a peacock.
Okay.
So you could also think of this, if you want to put it in the terminology of an arms race, you could think of this as snake resistance and this as newt toxicity. You should generally, if an arms race is occurring, you should see that as snake resistance goes up, newt toxicity also goes up. And so in both those cases, there's selection being acted on each of the two players in that system. And the same thing can go for reproductive strategies as well.
Mm-hmm.
So post-mating adaptations having to do with sexual conflict include things like sperm removal, sperm displacement, copulatory plugs, a lot of those things that are on that thing before. Sterile sperm, sometimes males will produce sterile sperm that effectively wash out the sperm of the previous female, and then they'll follow that sterile sperm with non-sterile sperm, with motile sperm. And like I said, these accessory gland proteins. Sperm sometimes can be costly, and if that's the case, then males may be stingy with the sperm that they provide to females. And then these female adaptations, we talked about cryptic female choice, the situation in ducks and chickens. Chickens eject undesirable male sperm. Fertilization success is determined by genetic compatibility in some cases. And so if you're not genetically compatible with the female, with the male, you either won't get fertilized, or those fertilized eggs will have developmental issues, which isn't really under the control of the female. But the more complete list of all of this is actually back here for female traits. And that, I think, is the end of this. Oh yeah, and there's a bowerbird. A male bowerbird that is decorating his bower in order to attract a female. The females fly by and they exercise female choice by choosing which male they're going to mate with. And the male succeeds by mating with as many females as possible. So whatever traits bowerbirds are looking for, female bowerbirds are looking for in a male bowerbird, those individuals that possess those traits will get more matings, and whatever those behaviors are will tend to take over in the population. And one of the traits is the building of the bower. One of the traits is the adornment of the bower with different colored blue things, including blue soda caps, and also probably the male plumage and male courtship dance. And so bowerbirds make a good example of, in this case, both female choice and male-male competition. The male-male competition is not direct in that they're getting into fights and conflicts over females, but there is competition among males for who can do whatever it is that makes females choose them.
Was it that building a better looking dower, was it called, or bower?
Bower, B-O-W-E-R.
Okay, was it that building a better bower attracted more females, or like a certain, like?
It's a combination of building the bower, decorating the bower, and then the vigorousness of the courtship dance. How vigorous is it? How long does it go on, et cetera, et cetera. Those all play into this. Presumably what the female, because what happens is the female mates with the male, and then the female flies away and raises the offspring on her own. The male doesn't contribute anything to reproduction from the female's perspective beyond just the female getting sperm. And so presumably what she's getting out of this when she chooses the male is she's choosing a male that has the characteristics that will make her male offspring successful as well.
Yep, that makes sense.
So it would be an example of the good genes hypothesis. All right, I don't have anything else for you today because I don't want to get ahead of the schedule, but consult the schedule. And what is on tap for the schedule? We do not have class on Friday and Monday, even though you got meeting requests for that. It's Good Friday and Easter Monday, and when I set it up, I just made it recurring on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So ignore those things. I will not be logging on, and neither should you. I already have the schedule open somewhere. So what we're going to be doing, we did sexual conflict today. Oh, we still have sexual conflict scheduled for Wednesday. Let's just go ahead and skip ahead to parental care. So when we think about parental care, one of the ways in which we can think about parental care is we can think about parental care in terms of who's doing the parental care, who's contributing the most to parental care. That comes right after sexual selection and sexual conflict in the book, because there is sexual conflict over parental care and who's going to do the parental care. And so knowing the material in chapter 7 is going to be crucial to knowing the material in chapter 8. So read chapter 8. That takes you up to sibling rivalry. And once we talk about conflicts between males and females in raising offspring, we will also talk about conflicts between parents and offspring in terms of how much parental care the offspring receive. So for example, you guys right now are benefiting from the parental care that is being provided by your parents, especially now, because you are at home eating their food, living in their house, et cetera, et cetera. Before you went home for the COVID pandemic, you were getting money probably from your parents to help defray some of the cost of your education, probably, hopefully. And so parents invest in offspring. They've invested a lot in you so far, I suspect. My apologies to you if you haven't gotten a ton of parental investment in your development and future. But there's this conflict because ultimately, what do your parents want you to do?
Be successful.
More than
Help
that,
them.
what do they want you to do?
Reproduce.
They may want you to reproduce, but before you reproduce, they want you to do what?
Get out of the
Help
house.
them.
They want you to move out of the freaking house. And so there's this conflict. The longer you can stay in the house, the more money you can save, maybe to make a down payment on a house of your own. You don't have to spend the money on food if they're buying food for you, et cetera, et cetera. It's great for you, but it's not as great for them because whatever money they're putting into you is money that they're not putting into themselves. And so there's also this parent-offspring conflict that we see out in nature that also occurs in humans. There comes a point where your parents want you to move out because it's good for them for you to move out. And of course, you want to hang on as long as you can because it's beneficial for you to hang on. And some of you may at some point soon experience that conflict. So we'll also talk about that in chapter 8. And then when we get to chapter 9, we'll be talking about monogamy, serial monogamy, polygamy, polygyny, all the different mating systems. And the different mating systems are basically determined by competitive interactions, costs and benefits of living in groups, sexual selection, and conflict over parental care. And so when we get to mating systems, you have to rely on all of those chapters in order to figure out what an expected mating system would be in any given system. So that gives you some sense of where we're headed. We had a faculty meeting on Monday via Zoom, and one of the questions that was brought up is, are we going to stick to the Easter schedule and are we going to stick to the Duke Colloquium schedule? So at this point, the Duke Colloquium has been canceled because of a lack of student interest to do a virtual Duke Colloquium. I only know this because I'm on the Duke Colloquium committee. And also, it came up on Monday's meeting. But basically, we're sticking to the schedule as it was. So we will be not meeting Good Friday and Easter Monday. And when it comes to that Thursday, which is the 23rd of April, we will be meeting to talk about family conflict, but we will not meet that Friday because that was the day that Duke Colloquium was supposed to be scheduled. So nothing changes about the schedule that was originally set up. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right.
For the literature review, it's due that Friday the 24th. What time do you want it turned into by?
5 o'clock is fine with me. How are you guys doing on that? I've gotten some questions from some people about it.
It's a slow process.
Is it harder to access literature and stuff from where you're at?
No, not really.
Okay. All right. Anyone else?
I've put in a couple requests for some interlibrary loan articles, but I haven't heard anything back, so we'll see.
Okay. Let me know if you still have problems. I'm not sure what the status of the library staff is at this moment, because they're technically academic staff, just like professors are, but given that they don't typically teach classes, I don't know how they're behaving relative to the pandemic and the shutdown at school and stuff. Right now, in the year 2020, most interlibrary loans are handled electronically anyway. So there shouldn't be any slowdown unless the libraries that you're asking for articles from are also having staff shutdowns such that we're requesting them of, for example, Mizzou's library, but Mizzou's librarians aren't there for whatever reason. So let me know if you're still having trouble, and I can see if I can intervene in some way.
I emailed the head of that interlibrary loan about a week or two ago, and I still haven't gotten a reply. And I've requested articles spring break, so I probably I wouldn't expect an article to get back because I've even reached out and it still hasn't happened.
Okay. All right. So in times of pandemic, we must be clever. So are you guys aware of ResearchGate?
Yes.
Okay, so another way in which you can get articles, strikingly enough, is by going to ResearchGate. And if you know who your author is, you can, and especially if you spell his name right, you can get his ResearchGate account. And in his ResearchGate account, you can find all of his 153 research items. And you can search for them by article. You can actually search by publication title or keyword, and you can find the stuff that he has written. If you request the full text, what happens when you do that? So in some cases, things are available for download. In other cases, you can request full text. When you request an article from a researcher through ResearchGate, what it does is it emails that author. So they get an email as soon as you click request full text. And it basically sends your request to them. And my experience with most people is they do a pretty good job of responding, because it's really just a matter of responding to an email and attaching the paper. And so that's one way that you can do things. Another way that you can do things is if you know the author that you are looking for. So for example, if I'm interested in Ray Huey's work on behavioral thermoregulation, I can just go to Ray Huey's homepage and I can click on the publications tab, and I can look at all publications. And when I look at all publications, in many cases, I can just click on that, and there is the article. So when the library starts to let you down, there are other ways in which you can go about getting literature. If you're still having difficulty, let me know, because I also have a whole bookshelf in my office that has stuff on it that might be of use to you. And so if you think that I can be of help, in some cases I may be able to just go to my bookshelf, photocopy a chapter as a PDF and send that off to you, and then you'll find good information in that.
For me personally, I feel like my problem has been with finding like access to really recent sources. Like most of the older sources seem to be like full text available, and I requested an older source and like got it back. But like some of the brand new stuff that's come out, it just seems like I've been having trouble finding access to like the newest articles. Do you know what I mean?
Because they're behind paywalls, or why?
Yeah, just like, oh, they're abstracts only available, or like they're on the library site, but I have to request them, which I have. But you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. So this is a problem with academic journals. It's not a problem with libraries, and it's not a problem with researchers. But when you publish a paper, the journal will oftentimes put a 2-year embargo on that, which means that for 2 years you can't put a digital copy of it online. And so anything that is paywalled and has an embargo on it is going to be more difficult to get. But quite frankly, if all you're not finding is the stuff in the last 2 years, I'm not going to be terribly worried about that.
Yeah, my only worry was, what if we end up proposing an experiment that's already been done later? We just didn't find it. You know what I mean?
It doesn't matter. I'm smart enough to figure that out.
Okay. Sounds good.
Luke, tell me, did you look at your literature summary?
Yeah, I got it whenever you sent it as a Word document. I never got that original email though.
Which original email?
The one that everybody else got. Are you talking about?
Yeah, the one that I just sent. Have you opened it up and looked at it?
Track changes?
Yep.
Yes, I have.
What did I say about the millipede experiment?
They already did that.
They already did that. They did that in 1995, so a couple of years later. So he got full credit for his thinking ahead. And I don't know. I can't peer into the soul of Luke and say, oh, did you propose that because you found that Brody did that, 2 years later, looking at aposematism in millipedes. But if you propose something that's been done in the time since you've had access to literature, I'm not going to grade you down on that. I'm aware of what people are doing, generally speaking, about these topics. And so, once again, Alexis, it's hard for you to have faith in me, evidently, but have faith that I can make wise judgments in assessing your critical thought portion.
Yeah, I just remember we talked about millipedes one time, and I remember you said that actually somebody licked one, and then that got me thinking.
That was me. That was me who licked one.
You did it, yeah.
Yeah. In Puerto Rico, and it was hideous. It was hideous. And then I tried to get my 2 students who were with me there to lick them, and they would not lick them after seeing my reaction to them. So they lost the opportunity to experience a very real animal behavior topic in a very visceral sort of way. So yeah, Alexis, trust me, it'll be okay.
It's not that I don't trust you, it's that I don't trust me. Don't be offended.
Well, have a little faith in yourself as well. All right, other questions? All right, enjoy your Easter weekend, and I will see you back here on Wednesday.
Hey, Paul, can you stick here? I have one more question, but it's more of a just me question.